Hey everyone, welcome back. So, if you're studying for the CISSP or really any cybersecurity certification, today's video is designed to show you how to study effectively and efficiently, and more importantly, to help you understand how you learn. Most of us were trained in high school or college to make flashcards like this, right? You put term on one side and some textbook definition on the other. And for general memorization, that works kind of. But here's the deal. The CISSP especially, and really any of the big cybersecurity certifications, they don't want you to just memorize stuff. They want to see if you understand it. And can you use it? Can you explain it? Can you have a conversation about it? Apply it in the real world? And that's the big difference between passing and failing. And more importantly, between being an average security professional and being a great one. And it's a really important distinction for you to understand, because we don't train you here just for you to be a CISSP. We want to create cybersecurity professionals, cybersecurity leaders, auditors, cloud security professionals. Whatever it is you're here for, that's what we really are trying to create. So let's dive into a couple of examples that I think might illustrate a little better some of the principles that I'm talking about. So I'm going to pop over to our learning dashboard. I'm going to scroll down, go to our questions and answers. We're going to come in here and say that we're struggling to understand do care, for example. So let's pull up some questions with do care. Now, when you specifically search these, if we have questions that don't violate any of your other filters, it will start with those. And as you can see, we have a do care question right here. It is literally asking us which of these would best constitute or demonstrate do care. Now, if you don't know what do care means, that's difficult. It can be very difficult for you to answer this question accurately. So if you're in our app, you could read the text lecture, and sure enough, there's this big long-winded definition of do care. Now, in our application, we have a built-in flashcarding system for you to make things easier for you with regards to being able to study the things that were new to you. So let's do that. Let's go make a flashcard on this. And I think, in the old methodology of how would I remember do care, I think if you read in the book, there's some really long textbook definition. In fact, we give you the pretty thorough definition here. So let's just say that you're kind of cheating it, right? You're just going, I just want the textbook definition. Most people are not going to be able to memorize that. And even if you can, you're making it much more difficult on yourself. The CISSP, for example, depending on which book you look at, has between 1,000 and 1,400 different concepts, terms that you need to know. And so the idea of trying to cram these $5 architecture level words into your head is complicated, and it's not a great way to learn. What we have found in the many years I've been teaching this is that the best way to learn this quantity of information is to make it comfortable. Make it something that is a language that you speak. So instead of saving this flashcard off like this, got a bunch of stuff in it, I don't want that. Instead, I'm going to describe it how I like to talk about it in class and how I would describe it to myself, which is basically, we call it the prudent person rule. Literally, it's a legal definition. And the prudent person rule basically states, what would a reasonable and prudent person do in a similar situation? A reasonable and prudent person would not speed in their car. Speeding while driving would be a violation of due care, right? Because a prudent and reasonable person is not going to do 30 miles over the speed limit while driving down the road. That, for me, is an easy way to remember that it just basically states that due care really means just being reasonable. So in a security context, I might say vulnerability scanning is a great example of due care. You should be looking for vulnerabilities, right? Some people want to understand just a small amount of it. Some people want a bigger definition, but the most important element here, and this is the biggest takeaway, I've been teaching it this way for the last 10 years, is that when you go to make this flashcard, what I need from you is for you to read in the book as much content as you need, to understand it well enough that you could explain it to a non-technical person. So I always tell people in class, I want you to imagine whoever it is in your life, the least technical person, the person who doesn't know anything about technology. Just pretend that they called you and said, hey, I saw something in the news. I don't know, there was some CEO is getting dragged into court because they violated due care when they did research on that last compromise or breach that they had. Well, I don't even know what is due care? What does that mean? So this is what we're looking for. However you would explain it to them, that's actually the way you want to take the notes, because it requires you to have a certain level of mastery to take complicated or technical information and distill it down to a definition that anyone can understand. And once you've kind of gone over that hurdle and you make that definition, you write it down, I can assure you it's going to be much easier for you to memorize and remember come test time. So if I'm done, I like this one, I'm going to save my flashcard. Great. Now it's in my deck and I'm good to go. So let's go back, and instead of looking at due care, let's look at something like, how about federated identity management? So if you've never heard of federation or federated identity management, when you log into a form or you go to log in and it says, hey, just sign in with Google or sign in with Facebook. That's an example of federation. That means that website that you're authenticating to has decided that they trust Google's authentication system. And so they basically pass a token where if Google has authenticated you and said, yeah, this is this individual at gmail.com or whatever, and they've passed me the correct password, then I'm going to trust. If Google says they're good, then good. I'll build a profile on that and I'll authenticate them based on Google trusting this individual. That's an example of federation. So there's a great breakdown, a pretty simple breakdown. So again, if we were going in here, we wanted to make a flashcard, you can access your flashcards from here. So if I'm going to put FIM or federated identity management, when a website trusts another website to authenticate users, for example, when you log into any website with your Google credentials instead of creds on that site specifically. Now that's how I would remember. You might have a very different way of doing that. You might like to put it into super simple terms, things that are much easier for you to remember. And that's okay. I want you to do that, because what matters most is that it is comfortable for you. If it's not comfortable for you, it's not going to work. It's going to make it very difficult for you to memorize all of this content. So we always want to distill it down into terms that we really understand. Okay. Now, just a couple of pitfalls or common mistakes I want you to watch out for. So first of all, ideally, I would vastly prefer you handwrite your flashcards. In fact, every student that comes to my class, I tell them, don't use digital flashcards. So you're probably wondering, well, Jeff, why did you put digital flashcards into the CertCamp app? Because I know a lot of people choose not to take my advice. And if they choose not to take my advice on that, I want them to be able, in a single platform, to record their thoughts and be able to do flashcards the way that they want to. But if you're asking me, first and foremost, I would strongly encourage you to handwrite them. But if you're going to do them digitally, under no circumstances, and actually, by the way, this rule goes for handwritten or digital, under no circumstances should you copy and paste data from the book, or should you handwrite what's in the book. These authors, they get paid a lot of money to put out professional, engaging material, but sometimes they use words that are very academic and are going to be more difficult for you to not just memorize, but really understand, because you're struggling with all the $5 words that were unnecessary. So never take any content out of the book, literally. You should read it, watch videos, do all the things that we talk about in boot camp to learn it, and then distill it into your words, how you would explain it. Under no circumstances, rule 2, under no circumstances should you be afraid of sounding too simple. It's okay. If a child can understand it, you nailed it. That's a good thing. That's what you're after. Tip number 3, I would say, is do not write some massive paragraph essay. Keep it short. The shorter, the better. Because when you are going back to review these, you don't want to have to read a lot of things. So You want to make sure that you understand the topic. You're going to use these flashcards throughout your study journal, and as you learn more, you're going to revisit your cards to help refine your answers. And one tip I like to give is if you're in a study group, try explaining these concepts to some of the people in the study group. See how they would describe them as well. See if you describing them explains it well enough to them that they understand. That's an important aspect. So make sure you're taking time to do that. And in our platform here, we have it laid out so that way when you, tell you what, let's grab the default flashcard here. So I've even gone as far as if you are too lazy to make a flashcard, you can just do a default flashcard and it will put in what I think your flashcard, or it's really much more textbook definition, should be. But when you go, hey, I'm going to review some flashcards, great. Looky here. So here's our flashcard. So you'll see on the front, you're going to see whatever that definition is. You think about it. Okay, how would I describe do care? Say it out loud, whatever it is to you, click on it, and boom, there's the thing that we stored. Were we correct? Were we right? If we weren't, we obviously need to keep studying. If we were, we want to click mark as known. And that's an important piece because it starts keeping tabs. And once you have marked a card known 3 times, it archives it. It's still there. You still have it, but it won't come up in your study deck anymore unless you specifically ask for it. And that is by design. We don't want you to keep seeing the same flashcards that you already know. Once you've mastered them, the game that we're after is you're going to end up with hundreds of flashcards. We want to see that stack getting smaller and smaller and smaller as you progress through the boot camp. So I hope this has been informative. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Take care.